When people asked about expertise about Bitcoin and then Ethereum, I was the only person in the whole floor who could articulate it better than anyone else in that building.
Our guest today is Kurahashi-Sofue, the CMO at Ava Labs. He is a professional street photographer and a previous electronic music DJ and festival organizer.
What's one of the biggest learning that you learned in all these years in the crypto space?
I would say yes to everything. When I was in high school, early college, I realized, hey, I'm not actually doing any of these things that well. I started to kind of step back and say, okay, what are the actual priorities? How should I actually maximize this? What helped is I can get the lay of the land and really understand, okay, this will probably reap a ton of benefit. This probably won't.
Put like 3K into that. The thing went so crazy in 3 days. The meme coin itself became $100,000. What's the thing that you decided to prioritize?
Marketing profession, music, a little bit of DJing, photography. In 2017, I ended up getting hired as a head of marketing for a company called Fluidity.
Why marketing if you're a nerd?
Yeah, okay, so because I grew up with really bad sleep problems, I always thought, oh, well, it's just part of my life and I can function anyways, which is kind of a backwards way of looking at it, actually.
I don't understand why people give so much importance to money. Money is just numbers on a screen. Crypto is like a lottery. You're winning a lottery ticket tonight, so you made it. And the day after, you lost the ticket, so you can't redeem your money.
Numbers on a screen, we as humans can't process that. It just looks like a game because it's not real.
What does the future of Avalanche look like? Yeah, 7 podcasts today, podcast number 2. Have to see it as an after-hour DJ session, which reminds me, but that was a long time ago. I was DJing when I was 16 to 21 years old. Now I'm 31.
Prime years for after hours.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, to do that every weekend, like, you need to be young. Otherwise,
pretty much
it's impossible.
Yeah,
like,
it's impossible.
Now I go out once and I'm dead for 3 days.
Yeah.
So, but I remember trying out. I did 3 times, going to multiple locations in one evening.
Yeah.
But obviously I was doing intros for like Avicii and a few DJs, but I was not a big DJ, you know? So I was taking my car.
Right.
And I was barely 18. So taking my car, going from one place to another. Like, I remember one time from the second to the third location, it was probably 3 a.m.
Yeah.
On the highway with music super loud, like open the window so it's a bit more cold, but I was like falling asleep, like, you know? And that day I realized, oh man, that's not good. That's not good. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore because it's too risky. And also I don't have any pleasure doing that. It doesn't bring me any joy. You do one thing at your best instead of like trying to do everything and trying to get money there and like kind of FOMOing into things. Same thing in crypto. You don't want to FOMO into 50 different projects.
But I feel like you have to experience that firsthand in order to kind of save yourself a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Not to max out too late in the game. You know, some people don't see that in the beginning and they're like, max, let's go. And you burn out.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
Do you have some examples?
I feel like I mean, I kind of have similar examples with music a little bit and maybe photography. I used to book gigs back to back. And
was it because of the money? Or because of like the FOMO, like if I say no to this one, I'm not going to be able to get this chance ever again.
It wasn't about the money, but I was just an opportunist, right? And I think that's with everything. So it's like, I would say yes to everything when I was in like kind of that age, late high school, early college, and then right after college, probably a little bit.
Yeah.
And then realized, hey, I'm not actually doing any of these things that well. I'm doing all of these pretty mediocre. And then that's when I think I started to kind of step back and say, okay, what are the actual priorities? How should I actually maximize this? What helped is I can get the lay of the land and really understand, okay, just by looking at it, this will probably reap a ton of benefit. This probably won't. And so now, you know, 10, 15 years later, I'm looking at things and I'm like, don't even have to try it. I just know, okay, let's just not deprioritize. Let's prioritize this.
So what were these things that you were doing at the same time? And what's the thing that you decided to prioritize?
Yeah. So the main things that I think there's all these different categories. So there's like marketing profession, music, a little bit of DJing too, photography for DJs, producing events, and then probably like friendships, relationships, all these things on the side.
Sometimes sleeping.
Yeah, sometimes sleeping
here and there.
And I wasn't thinking about sleeping because I grew up with really bad sleep problems.
Okay.
And so I think I always thought, oh, well, it's just part of my life and I can function anyways. Which is kind of a backwards way of looking at it, actually.
Did you solve that?
Yeah, I don't think I solved it completely, but I have ways to cope. And I think I have a much more healthy outlook of sleep and rest and preserving that, giving it its space, right?
How much of a pillar it is in your life, basically. It's a basic.
It's pretty important.
If you don't have that kind of under control, the rest is gonna can compound positively.
Yeah, when I'm at home, it's perfect almost. It's really good. Like I don't get like too much sleep, to be honest, but I get more than I used to.
What do you get?
I used to get like 4 or 5. Now I get like 7 probably.
That's good.
Consistently, yeah.
And why do you do that? Like complete darkness?
Complete darkness, white noise machine.
Blindfold. Okay.
Like kind of like minimize electronics before and even after when you wake up too, just to like have better hygiene. That's not perfect. We work in cryptos. It's not always perfect, but it's better than before.
Yeah.
I feel like also like I don't drink nearly as much. I'm not a huge drinker really. And so kind of like just being very mindful of the hygiene. And before it was, again, just like sleep didn't have a pillar. So the way I've now categorized the pillars is I have 3 focus areas. One is work, right? We have to eat. That's the idea. So work for us, or for me in this case, is marketing and crypto. That's kind of the main thing I'm focusing on right now. And that's...
Is work number 1 or is sleep number 1?
Sleep is sleep is number 1.
Okay.
But it kind of sits underneath everything. So if sleep's not addressed, then none of the 3 priorities I'm about to name.
It's like a layer 0.
Yeah, no, it really is. And then the second piece is creativity, because I've realized I am super type A and I like that kind of more left brain focus, but I also need kind of the creative focus as well.
For happiness?
Yeah, like just for fulfillment.
To feel happy and...
yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of for the last 3-4 years of photography. And I kind of deprioritized music because you can't do music and photography both well. Music has a much steeper learning curve, in my opinion. Photography is still insanely steep, but at least I found a lot more success there. And I was like, okay, let's just focus on that and continue to go level 2, level 3, level 4. And then the last focus is really, well, I'm extroverted. So I realized where I get energies from people. And so intimate relationships, just friendly, platonic relationships, professional relationships, kind of all get bucketed in there. And it's kind of a push and pull, right? So if work is really intense, then I got to be really mindful of pulling back down on the other 2, because it's all pulling from the 100% pool. And so if I'm pulling, again, like full stops, which I have done before, then the layer 0 gets totally screwed. And same with the reverse is true. So like even the last few years, I've been much more focused on crypto. I've kind of started to try to buy back that time a little bit more. But even in that 2 or 3 year stint, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is short term. That's okay. I'm going to make that sacrifice, and maybe the creativity or the relationships thing will kind of take a second seat. But I know it's short term, and that's where I'm a little bit more healthy about it. If it's not short term, then that's a problem, because then I'm not balancing my life properly, I think.
Thank God we have these cycles, bull market, bear market, where we're kind of forced to get back to a normal life because the bear market is boring as fuck and depressing. So you need to find happiness and the dopamine, the healthy dopamine and endorphins from other things than crypto.
Right. Well, that's kind of why the balance is important. And I think it's worked so well. Like I've kind of stuck to the system for the last 5 to 7 years, not too long, but long enough. Before that, it was great. But again, I saw like things deteriorating my health or whatever it may be, not in like extreme ways, but ways where I was like, okay, I'm not happy with this outcome at all. Let's figure out how to fix it. And at the end, it's always a priorities issue. Right. And so now moving forward, next 5 years, I might be looking at, okay, maybe I want to focus more on a creative endeavor. So I want to juice that up a little bit more. Maybe because of the bear market too, it might make sense to focus on that a little bit more, while I also still focus on crypto and marketing, of course, but find ways to kind of balance. And maybe you can also kind of cheat your way to balance that a little bit by asking for help, getting more resources. And so I think there's ways around it, but it's still, again, very, very straightforward of there's a whole pie you kind of have to take down from that. And if you try and seek more, that's when you're going to start to stumble.
So you said you had all these different priorities at once, which was way too much. And then you said, I'm going to focus on work. I mean, obviously sleep, work, creativity, but the creativity will be more photography than music. Yeah. Right. So now it's mostly photography. I mean, sleep, photography, work. And work is crypto.
Essentially. I've kind of even let a little bit less of a focus on photography these days, and then kind of pushed more on some of the side endeavors that are part of work a little bit, but not really. You know, it's kind of this own pillar of like, doesn't pay the bills, but could, and still kind of early ideation.
For example?
So I've been really interested in this idea of opening up a music venue in New York.
Oh, nice.
And I think you would relate to that, but I want to do it properly. And I want to do it where the loose theme that I've kind of been talking about is I don't want capitalistic pressures to have to force this environment, this experience in a way, in the direction that most New York venues kind of steer towards, just by kind of the essential economics of the whole thing, right?
Especially in the creative industry, you can feel it directly.
Yeah.
If the priority is great, obviously the thing needs to be profitable.
Exactly.
At some point, but you can feel if the place has like culture and where the key spot is for creativity and culture and music in this case, or if it's a money-making machine. Mm-hmm. You can feel it as a customer directly.
Exactly. And I feel like to start, I don't really care for the money-making machine side, which is an amazing place to be.
Yeah.
But there has to be other mechanics to kind of keep that culture alive, because at the end of the day, success kind of brings on that capitalistic pressure, and it's hard to sometimes kind of push it away. And that's where I think you kind of have to make a common purpose for the people that are attending, and eventually I think the rest will follow is what I'd like to think, at least. Maybe I'm simplifying it too much, but.
What would this place look like, this venue? Would it be like concerts? Would it be DJ? Would it be electronic music? Because I know you love electronic music. Would it be a variety of different type of music?
So far, pretty open. I think it'll probably stick to underground electronic for now, just to give it that space. I really take a page out of the Berlin night scene. They do an incredible job. Think about, you show up to any club in Berlin, you pay 10 euros max, and that's always what it is. And there's still a 5-hour line. In New York City, there's a 5-hour line because no one can afford the $5,000 tables. It's a two different very unique outcomes, right? One is, again, driven by money, and the other is driven by culture, by FOMO. There is obviously FOMO on both sides, but in my mind, I think the cultural FOMO is much better than the capitalistic one.
So an opening night with the Martinez brothers.
Maybe. Even then, like, I kind of want to keep it even lower key for now, because I want so there's a club called Sisyphus in Berlin.
I know. I've been there for New Year's Eve 2013.
Yeah, magical place.
Is the place with the multiple?
Yeah, it looks like
you get lost.
It looks like a Western saloon, kind of like a US like American kind of old Western place, all wood.
And then you go outside, you go to this other place, and then you go outside, and there's these different houses, and you're just there like, where the hell am I? Like, I don't even know. Yeah. Like, I'm lost in this little village.
Yeah. And DJs will take bookings like $1,000, $2,000, or €1,000, €2,000 booking fees, or sometimes they play free because it's such a coveted place to be.
Like the big DJs, they go there and almost, that's amazing.
And then also think about the attendance. When you show up, you have no idea who's playing. You just know, hey, I want to be at Sisyphus.
It's gonna be amazing,
or whatever else. Other clubs in Berlin have this too, but this is one.
The branding of the club versus the branding of the DJ or the artist coming.
Exactly.
There.
And if you create a safe space, create an environment that I think the core community people or the core evangelists want to be a part of, then it gets protected. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's this snobbiness to it, of course, right? Cultural snobbiness, which I'm kind of playing into, but hopefully it doesn't get too carried away. That's the whole idea. So I think experientially it is open for anyone who doesn't necessarily like underground music, because I think that's a little bit prohibitive. You know, not everyone wants to do like 125, 130 BPM with no lyrics and whatever. So there's a space in New York called Public Records. They actually do an incredible job. It's kind of the similar model where there's a musician involved in the partnership. There's like a kind of a capitalist involved as well. There's also a bunch of cultural advocates involved. There's all these different types of people. And so it's welcoming to the everyday. But if you want to go to the back room, which has like a 4-point sound system, incredible sound system, all the super intense music heads will also find a home. So you can kind of step in, step out. And so when I go there, I can bring my friends who have never listened to techno ever, maybe. And they might also find it interesting and not super overwhelming, but I can bring some of my, super club head friends, and they'll also have a great time. And so I feel like that inclusivity, it's like 300 person cap capacity, not too big, super intimate, that has a lot of legs. The minute you open it up and you go, okay, we're going to pump $30, $40 tickets, it's over.
Yeah.
So kind of that balance.
So sort of letting down a bit the electronic side, electronic music side, to go to photography, to now going back to music.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And the entire time it's like, I can, I feel like
it's all linked also.
Yeah, exactly.
You can, obviously like all these events, you want to show them somewhere, and like the better you are at production and photography,
Yeah.
Like actually today, photography and production and this type of stuff is like the new way to market things.
Exactly. So I can, from the photography side, I have much more empathy with the designers, the creative directors. I can work with them much more closely. I always come to the table and say, hey, I'm a fellow artist as well. I understand this. And so I'm not going to be that helicopter marketing leader who is saying, hey, this has to be like this. This has to be like this. We can make it more of a collaboration. On the other hand, on the music side, we've been producing a lot of events for Avalanche. Basically all the past contacts I've made in my music life have kind of come back, and I'm going to go up to them and say, hey, by the way, we're doing an event in Korea. We're doing an event in Barcelona. Do you want to play it? And they come to me and say, oh, interesting. Crypto event? You want like an underground DJ?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, now here's why. And then kind of that's where the stage
And then you
starts to
can
reset.
link smartly, which we've done already because one of your friends is Blondish. So you can link. You can say, okay, come play at my event.
Right.
But then you can say, hey, you're an artist. There's this NFT stuff that's going to be something big. And hey, here's the way you could leverage NFTs or crypto.
Yeah.
You think you're just coming to play here, but I'm going to explain you how crypto can help you in your artistic career.
Yeah.
Can you give an example with, for example, Blondish or other people you know that you basically matched with blockchain to try to do something that's better for them, their brand and their community?
Yeah. So funny enough, Viv is like super into crypto. So that was less about like me saying, hey, this is something interesting. You should check it out. She was already like at an insane expert level, which is why I think we kind of have meshed pretty well over the last few years. There are a few other artists. I would say it's less about like, hey, this is the new thing, but it's more like, hey, this is what we're working on, and here's why Avalanche might be better than the use cases that you've seen. And also, instead of saying, hey, this is the solution for you, it's more like, this is potentially the solution for you. Is there something we can work out? Is there something we can maybe pivot or flex a little bit to make it work for you? And so you actually get right in front of the customer, right? And you go, hey, music NFTs, BS or not? Is it PFPs, BS or not? And instead of minting it or going through building it out and selling it and seeing if these artists come on board, you can actually start to validate or invalidate your product direction way before it's even public.
Absolutely.
And so I think that to me has helped so much, not just in product development, but also investing, understanding the market, where people are. It's just really all about information gathering and trying to get as many touch points as possible so you can make an informed decision, whichever direction you end up going.
How's the product roadmap changed regarding these
So
these feedbacks?
I think one of the programs that we launched early this year, it's been kind of in the works for almost a year now, is this program called Avalanche. I think we might have talked about it before, and it's an artist grants program, bare bones, but when you actually lift it up, it's focused on up and coming artists who really want to try blockchain technology but don't really know how. And so you have people, so there's kind of the same friend circles as Viv, but there's a friend, I have a friend, his name is Gio. He's deeply in the music space. He's also deeply in crypto. He was one of the leaders, and he's basically picking a handful of grantees effectively and saying, I'm going to teach music curriculum. We'll go from 0 all the way up to 1, 2, 3, 4 and go up the level. And hopefully by the end of the program, you'll have at least a few or even just one artist saying, hey, by the way, this whole program has helped me shape the direction that we go in. And so to your question, the way that's shaped our direction is we've worked so closely with these artists to say, hey, what's your ideal program? And everyone is fascinated, super bullish on this. And so there's not really one particular thing I could say that it changed. It changed the whole program, but the outcome that it enabled us to do is a much more successful outcome because now you have all these OG legit artists that are saying, hey, these guys are not just here for the quick cash grab. They're willing to sponsor us even to make our dreams a reality. And then in turn, the people that follow us, that look up to us, can also have their dreams come to fruition. And so that's kind of the collaborative spirit that I think we've really harnessed, which I don't think really was there before as much, I think.
How do you think an artist who is interested by this crypto, blockchain, NFT stuff, okay, maybe not this year because last year was not great, but it's going to happen again next year in 2 years. How do you think they can, especially if they don't understand crypto? So let's say they're not a crypto DJ and which a lot of DJ, if you look at a bunch of DJ, even the DJs I used to like kind of follow 10 years ago, a lot of them in crypto, you see them like crypto DJs. But if they're not, and if they're not DJs, but like artists, they want to experiment with NFTs. How do they do that without damaging their brand? because at the end of the day, it's very risky.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of influencers, artists, 2021, they came and then they tried something. A bunch of them probably won't realize, I can make some money quickly.
Yeah.
But probably most of them, I would hope, have their communities or fans' best interest at heart and didn't want that, but realized, oh man, I launched this thing, but like I didn't even have time to build some inherent value to my community, my NFT, that the entire thing crashed and now everybody got wrecked and I look bad, right?
Yeah.
So how can an artist experiment with NFTs without screwing their own fans?
You kind of mentioned it while you were even phrasing the question. It was really about get rich quick schemes. If it feels like that, it's probably a red flag, right? And as much as it is tempting, you have to really understand you're going to burn your whole fan base, and you might even take one whole step back or a few steps back. I feel like there are a ton of artists that have gone through that path, of course, but there's also a ton of artists who may have considered that, but also then realized, okay, like how to, the rabbit hole analogy, right? They went down the rabbit hole and realized, okay, get rich quick was really what captured my attention, but there's so much more than that.
This is a classic in crypto, actually.
Yeah.
You see the price of the coins go up. That's why you go in there. You're like, I'm going to become rich overnight.
Yeah.
Then you get wrecked overnight.
And then
like
you look into it.
This is interesting, actually.
Yeah. No, so I mean, that's how it is, right? You gotta just get in there deeper than being on the surface layer. So if you don't understand what you're doing, look into it a little bit more. And I think that's a check for everybody, even me, even you, right? And so that's kind of where I get to. Find a little bit more depth and then get into it, right? If you're picking anything else in the world, if you're about to, let's pick F1 because it's this weekend. If someone's like, hey, you want to drive this F1 car, you're not just about to floor it, right? No one's ever going to do that. You might actually look into, you might ask questions, you might ask professional drivers being like, hey, how do I actually equip myself so I don't totally wreck this multi-million-dollar car? It's the same idea. But unfortunately, I think numbers on a screen, we as humans can't process that. It just looks like a game. And you don't really feel anything from it as much because it's not real.
Yeah. It's not real. That's very,
that's physically real.
It's not real. No, that's very important. I forgot what I wanted to say. I mean, regarding the it's not real, like I remember 2022 before Luna crash. So like I remember being skiing in Switzerland with my parents because I'm from Switzerland. I would go there, living the life because everything was up like crazy since 2 years. And I remember telling my dad, man, Dad, I don't understand why people give so much importance to money. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, because at the end of the day, money is just numbers on a screen, right? It's stupid. It doesn't make sense because it's just, I have more benefits in life and I'm more important and I'm more powerful because I have more number. I have 1 additional, 10 additional zero on a screen. It's nonsense. Yeah. And then you think about money printing, the fact that banks can also basically print. It makes no sense. True. But you were saying to me, Kevin, like you're basically completely disconnected to reality. This money, these numbers represent something in reality. Like with a certain amount, with $10, you can buy a pizza.
Yeah.
With $100, you can buy 10 pizza. And that's the problem, the thing I hadn't realized. I was like, yeah, no, I still don't understand. It doesn't make sense, etc. Then, as you said before, these numbers are not in crypto. They're not real. Because they can, I had a guest the other day and he was telling me crypto is been in crypto also like you since 2013, or I think maybe you've been even before. We'll talk about that later. And he was telling me crypto is, the best analogy is like a lottery. You're winning a lottery ticket tonight. So you made it. And the day after you lost the ticket so you can't redeem your money. Yeah. Basically, and I was like, oh man, that's how not real it is, Yeah. So he's the guy who is co-founder of GSR.
Okay,
and,
cool.
He's called Alexi. And anyway, so like a very good analogy. You've been in crypto since 2011, 12?
Yeah, more or less. I feel like I really started working in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you discovered crypto before that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your journey?
Yeah.
And how did you end up even start there, like, especially as an artist? someone, you're not a mathematician or.
Well, weirdly, I wasn't
science.
even doing the creative stuff back then. It was 2011-ish, and just a huge nerd. I've always kind of distilled it down to that. Everyone's always like, how do you know this? I'm like, I'm just a nerd. And the computer and the internet has allowed me so much information. It's incredible that if I'm curious about one thing, I could pretty much learn the whole concept if I just sat in front of a computer screen for however many hours or days, right? And Bitcoin was kind of coming up through kind of the underground boards, and you start reading about it, and I just thought it was, again, like money printing, and I was like, it's kind of a scam. I don't really understand. And then I used it once to buy, I was in high school, so I bought fake ID, and that was how I bought it, through the Silk Road. And it was early days, and had a bunch of Bitcoin left over in a wallet, and then forgot about it. And then 6 months later, it appreciated to however many dollars. And at that age, I think I was still 18 or 19. And I was like, whoa, what was this? Is this it? And then it crashed back down. And then it kind of kept going. And really, I started to just trade it. And it was purely speculative. But about 2014 came around, I think. And I feel like Vitalik started to talk about Ethereum a little bit more. They talked about applications. And to me, Bitcoin didn't make any sense because I didn't have a traditional finance background at all, of course, at that age. But applications made much more sense. I think kind of the nerdiness, and also just growing up in the digital age of internet, mobile, all these applications, and just the simple narrative of let's remove the inefficiencies of the middleman, right? And from there, really started to see a lot of these Fortune 100, 500 clients. I worked at a major agency in New York, and they started talking about it. That legitimized in my head. And I said, if the grownups are talking about it, well, then I think I might be onto something. And all of a sudden, one thing led to another. And when people asked about expertise about Bitcoin and then Ethereum a few years later, I was the only person in the whole floor, maybe even the whole building, who could articulate it better than anyone else in that building. And that to me was even a bigger signal, and kind of chased that. And I was in a marketing function, and then was at the agency and kind of worked on a little bit of blockchain and crypto marketing there. And then in 2017, ended up getting hired as a head of marketing for a company called Fluidity. And that's Samir's.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just before that, why marketing? If you're a nerd.
Yeah, huge. Okay, so marketing, actually the part that I skipped was I ran a music publication, and that's kind of where this all kind of comes together. The reason why I ran it was I worked as a golf caddy in where I grew up in New York, and I was basically rich people's bitch the whole time. And I was very good at it because I think my Japanese tiger parents like taught me to take things seriously, no matter how small or large, right?
Yeah.
And I was pushing so hard. I'd go to the golf club at like 5 a.m, leave at like 8 p.m, do like 3 rounds. And then I realized I was capping out. I was capping out at the time spent, and there was no other vertical movement beyond what I've already done at 13, right? Age 13 to 18. I got really frustrated one time, and I thought to myself, well, internet businesses has a higher ceiling. So let's try that. I saw all these college guys writing blogs. And so I just booted one up overnight, wrote one, and just started writing. Started to seed it through friends of friends. It was kind of the boom of social media. And all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, I had 1 million readers a year. When I look back, I was like, well, what led to that?
Continued. Yeah.
Well, there was a few complicated things. There was one where the servers got DOSed. I booted up wrong, like all this kind of like early mistakes, which was traumatizing at the time, but I'm over it now. But effectively, I looked myself in the mirror and said, what led to that success? And it was really a lot of science pointed to digital marketing. And then I was like, oh my God, so cool. If I could kind of accidentally stumble into success almost with social media marketing, what else could I do with this? And then realize there's all these different channels. There's actually strategy underlying, instead of me just posting tweets or me posting Facebook posts without really knowing what's up.
Absolutely.
And then that's basically what led to marketing.
Absolutely. Actually for this podcast, everything is a science. All this social media is a science, and we're using AI and data analysis to help us script podcast questions. Obviously conversations are very organic, but there's a way to ask questions so that the answer is more likely to go viral in a short video clip.
Yeah.
And you want to accumulate the millions of views, because that's how you get the eyeballs, and that's how you get the sponsorship and all that stuff. And and it's working really amazingly well. Like, just since we did all these changes, like, it's basically, how do you train the algorithm to understand that you understood the algorithm. And obviously on different social media platforms, you have different algorithm, but it's all because now people consume mostly with short video clips and all that stuff. So like you need to focus on that. And going through the last 3 months, really focused on that. And now we have like, some video clips with Irene Zhao, like doing like 2 million views and all that stuff. And it's all digital marketing, and it's all understanding the science behind it. And it's just, and that's why Mr. Beast is so
exactly.
He's so amazing. He's just saying, I could start another YouTube channel without my name, without my face, and in 6 months have 10 million subscribers.
Because
I know exactly what goes viral. And it's just the science of going viral every now and then.
Yeah. And I feel like part of it too is a little bit of the competitiveness of my background. I grew up with a twin sister. Told you already I have 2 Japanese parents, so that's already a lot. Grew up in New York, which is hyper competitive, just kind of like from a careers perspective, but also from when you're a child being brought up by your parents as well. It's pretty competitive just because of the finance world in New York City, of course. And so kind of all that comes together, and you look at it and say, okay, well, marketing is basically professional storytelling baseline. If your story doesn't hit, you're not doing your job. And then obviously it's not just one channel. And so it's multiple channels, even thousands of channels, you could argue. And with all that, then you have a huge land, and it's like a game. And you go, okay, well, what pieces can I be playing to make sure that story lands with the opponent, for example, or the target customer in a more baseline way to view it. And so that part always is, to me, is so fun.
It's sort of a game, basically. Yeah.
And crypto is like that too. And so is music a little bit, because the music scene also has nested kind of social layers too. And it also has marketing.
If you think about it, you can break down anything, languages, music, probably photography. There is processes and ways that things work. Obviously, it makes everything less sexy, because we all love a good story of like this person got lucky and rich overnight, or super successful and found. No, but it's not the truth. The truth is like consistency, hard work, understanding, that's how this game, everything is a game. That's how this game is played. That's how I build a business. That's how I trade or invest. That's how I grow a following. That's how I do this and that. And then you just apply and apply and apply.
And by the way, I don't care if it's sexy or not, because I'm a huge nerd anyways. So nothing was really that sexy to begin with. And you just got to like keep going.
So head of marketing at Fluidity.
Yep.
And then,
so was there?
So you met Samir. Samir Tabari is a previous guest on the podcast, the CEO of Bit Digital.
Yep.
Nasdaq listed Bitcoin mining company, who also a huge fan of Berlin.
And
nightlife.
There's a lot
I
of
see him on Instagram all the time.
There's a lot of overlap in that scene.
The guy is always in Berlin.
Pretty much. Yeah. He's now there. But so weirdly actually met that team totally cold. And then we bonded over music. And that's what
classic
happened.
One.
Yeah, classic.
It's like us, basically.
No,
like,
honestly.
hey, the same. Yeah.
Honestly, it was the same thing. And it was actually Oved is also is the founder too. And he and I bonded over cats. It was a cats and music. And then crypto was like a background thing. And it was like, okay, we get that you know it. I don't care. But let's just figure out the personality and how you actually think. And they gave me a huge chance. I think it was pretty competitive. And I remember I was like, okay, this is like total moonshot, but let's see. And led that team for about a few years. And then after that, the company got acquired. When that kind of happened, that was my kind of signal to say, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for new things. And then also another kind of really random situation. I talked to a bunch of different companies, but Ava Labs, John Wu, president, he reached out to me on LinkedIn. Hey, I love all the stuff that you've been doing in the space. Obviously, there's like 10 people in the industry at that moment, so it wasn't that hard to find someone. But DM me and said, hey, do you want to lead marketing for Ava Labs? We're going to launch a new L1 called Ava. It was called Ava actually at the time, but what now became Avalanche. And then kind of the rest is history from there.
When was that exactly?
Right during COVID. So we went into lockdown. The company got acquired by Consensus. And then it was like a month later, so May 2020.
What's one of the biggest learning that you learned in all these years in the crypto space? As a builder and as an investor?
So much. Honestly, don't take things face value. That's, I think, one of the main themes.
Learned the hard way last year.
Yeah, seriously. Like, and even then,
a lot of nice sales guys.
I learn every year, and it humbles me all the time. And sometimes I think to myself, well, didn't I tell myself that it was the last time I'd get kind of like duped by the smoke and mirrors again? It's just, we're just human at the end of the day. And if, you know, millions of people are looking at this and saying, hey, this is it, you go, okay, it is it.
We're human trying to build a momentum. And obviously when you build a momentum, you go a bit ahead of yourself, sometimes way too much, and you end up in jail, like a few people.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I'm not doing anything there, but yeah. Yeah, that's like the far extreme. That's even like way beyond.
You said last time we talked, nobody knows anything.
Well, that too. Very similar, actually. Similar guidance, right? Nobody knows anything, and that's why you have to not take things face value. It's like if someone comes and tells you they're a Bitcoin expert and there's a new proposal on Bitcoin, it's like, take 2 steps back. Yeah, maybe they do. Doesn't matter. Take 2 steps back. Look at yourself. Look at the other pieces on the table. Talk to other folks. Really think about it. And even then you might still be wrong, and that's okay. But at least, I don't know, the whole word of like aping into things, right? Let's not do that.
Do you want to define that for people who don't know what it means?
Well,
Aping
I don't even know if I'm like the Webster's Dictionary of Crypto at this point, but aping seems to have come out of just the crazy kind of dopamine chasing behavior that everyone or the OGs in crypto have, or everyone in crypto's teams have, especially in a bull market. And so like a chimp or an ape would, you just kind of like without thinking do that thing, and you just ape into it. And that's kind of the terminology.
You see something that's starting to rise, you just jump into it, buy it, close your eyes, hope for the best, and often get wrecked.
Pretty much.
Even if the thing does 100x, then you're gonna hold it.
Because it could of course do 1000x.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have multiple stories like that, but I remember in 2020 feeling like, I'm early in this NFT thing. There was this coin called meme. So you could stake it, and then you would farm pineapples. And then with these pineapples, you could get some art pieces, so artworks.
Yeah.
So buy them with pineapples from like really cool artists, you know? And then you could either keep them if you like them, or you could resell them. And in the beginning of this kind of game, like there was only, for example, if the drop would be random. They would tell you only on Twitter, we're dropping now the new thing. So you always be like that, like waiting for it. And then you'd have maybe 10 pieces. So obviously within a few minutes, it would be gone, or a few seconds at some point. And then you could literally sell these for like 1, 2, 3 ETH, which ETH was probably $500. You could like basically get 1.5K by staking this meme coin, which was literally called meme, getting this pineapple, and then getting this card and selling it, right? And I remember I was like, I need to play this game multiple times. So I'm going to buy enough meme coins to play the game like 3-4 times at the same time, you know? So because it was max 5 pineapple per day for 1 meme token stake, something like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a few, put like 3K into that. And then the thing went so crazy. The meme coin itself, like my meme coin, like became $100,000, which was like a bit less than 100 ETH, which now is more and much more, and at the top of the bull market, much more. And obviously you're there, and it became like in 3 days. So it went from 3K to like 100K plus. And then I was like, oh man, obviously it's going to go to 1 million. So you just hold it. And then it went back down, like bubble crashed, like all within like 1 week or 10 days.
Right.
Crazy thing. And I was like, oh man, fuck, I fucked it up completely. So like my 3K was still 6K, but obviously you see the 100K that you didn't sell. So like you feel like you're a piece of shit and everything. But then I'm like, you know what? This thing is over. I'm going to sell at 6K. I'm still up 2X, but like, I was depressed as fuck, obviously. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to ape in the next shit coin.
To just make it all back.
Exactly. Boom, ape in, like within like a couple
strategy.
of hours, down 50%, back to 3K. I'm like, fuck's sake, man. Done playing this bullshit game. And I mean, a classic one and an example of aping in.
But isn't that funny?
And then this meme coin, 2 months later, went back up, but like much more. Obviously.
But isn't it funny? Like that whole story that you just told, I tracked every single step of it. Tell that to anybody outside this room, anybody. They'd be like, so how does the pineapple work here?
Nonsense.
There's pineapple?
Nonsense. Yeah.
What? And this is probably like the middle of the road, like not even that bad of a reference. It's probably way
No,
worse.
it's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
It was after the food DeFi summer.
Yeah,
Ended up after, but like kind of like obviously NFTs exist since earlier than that, but like kind of mainstream NFT stuff.
Well,
like,
DeFi summer was the sushi like drama.
Exactly.
It's like high school. Another learning is like this all reminds me of high school. As long as you can templatize the industry to high school, you're gonna be good. You're gonna navigate it pretty well. Don't get too like, cocky and have a target on your back, but also understand their clicks everywhere, and there's certain tribes that you want to be part of and you don't want to be part of. At the end of the day, like in high school, things are really petty and kind of childish. So also understand that, right? And everyone's always like, yeah, it's totally like high school.
And understand that most of it is manipulated. So even on social media, you have all these likes and things, like everything is bought. You have all these bots.
Right. So it's not even real.
You can actually be, that's how they build momentum again, like into a project.
Yeah. And that meta layer, right? There's the in-person kind of relationship building, but there's also the online, and the online is also like you signal certain things. You're not necessarily your authentic self, right? There's so many things I do on Twitter that I would never do in person if we saw it face to face. Like it's like I don't do that, right? But in Twitter, you can actually signal socially and say, hey, like maybe it's a soft endorsement. That gets a little tricky too, especially with financial instruments.
What does the future of Avalanche look like?
Right now, we are coming on a pretty intense few weeks. We just came from Korea. So we had the second biggest event in Korea, second to KBW's actual conference. We had over 1,000 people show up. We had a little over 2,000 people registered. It was obviously a side event situation, so there's obviously a little bit of drop off. We're focused on a few things. I think the three primary things would be enterprises, Ava Cloud, which I'll get into in a second, and also Avalanche, which is that artist program. So really focus on NFT artists. The Ava Cloud product, full stop, is a fully managed blockchain service. So if you are an enterprise and you want to boot up a blockchain solution, you don't actually have to hire a whole engineering team. You don't have to hire all that. You just go to Ava Cloud and say, hey, this is the solution that we need. And there's actually a front end and everything, and you can actually deploy blockchain in just minutes.
Is Amazon or Microsoft doing something similar?
Yeah, so Amazon does this, but they only support, I believe, Ethereum on the smart contract side. And I think they also support, I forgot one other chain. I can't remember which one, but Ethereum's one of them. And so I think they're taking a different approach right now.
And Ava Cloud would be multi-chain?
No, we would focus on Avalanche under the hood, but the thesis is that we have such a performance stack of tooling that it's just better than what's out there. Plus, I think the other interesting advantage is the team that's building Ava Cloud also is building the Avalanche protocol. And so instead of a third-party managed service, like AWS is a good example, and not saying anything negative about those guys, but if they're building something for Ethereum, they are second to the Ethereum Foundation. The Ethereum Foundation and the core devs know exactly what's going on, and then they have to kind of react. We can kind of do one and the same much more quickly. So we might not see the benefits of it now per se, but I would say I think it's going to really be evident as we continue to validate the product, and the product should be going live very soon.
Amazing. Thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
In person. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.